I've been waiting to say this for 9 months. Let's go. As ever, the despicable British mainstream media, led by the British bashing corporation Woke ITV, Channel 4 and Sly News, completely missed the point during their celebratory coverage of last night's general election result. Despite Labour's massive majority in seats, the reality is that furious Brits have been rejecting the system. So I'm going to give you the real highlights of the night now that the MSM want to ignore. Labour's share of the vote was up by just 2%, but the party received a massive majority of seats because of the crooked and corrupt first-past-the-post electoral system designed to protect the uni party at any cost. There is no enthusiasm for Labour. Slippery Starmer's personal majority in his seat was actually slashed from 36,000 to just 18,000. Meanwhile, and this is really chilling, 4 pro-Gaza extremist independents knocked out Labour MPs, including Jonathan Ashworth, who was due for a big cabinet role. The BBC doesn't want to cover that either. But what does that sort of sectarian extreme vote show? And I'm going to be honest for a moment. What it shows is the complete failure of mass immigration and multiculturalism. And then there's the heroic story of Superman Farage. From a standing start just 4 weeks ago, Nigel, the man the MSM despises, and his Reform UK party have launched a populist revolution that makes his party the flag bearer of the right. Like we're seeing in France in 5 years, I think we're going to be talking about a Prime Minister Farage, because all Slippery Starmer is going to do is deliver a socialist hellscape. You know, soaring immigration, sky-high taxes, weird wokery. No one wants that. And just as he promised, Farage took millions of votes from Labour. With champagne in hand in the early hours of the morning, he was proving why he is the most charismatic politician in Europe.
Nigel Farage, yes. MP.
Yes. Great good times, come on.
It's been a long time coming.
Well, yeah, I did 20 years in the European Parliament, but breaking through the first-past-the-post system, tough. And we haven't just won, we've won big. I'm thrilled.
You've got a lot of colleagues going in with you. What will be your first order of business?
Well, let's see what the circumstances are. I mean, let's get ourselves bedded in. I think to try and run before we can walk might be a mistake. I tell you what, those small boats will be crossing the channel next week. I guess that's where I start.
The Conservatives' worst ever performance was an indictment on the leftists and woketopians like Tobias Ellwood, Alex Chalk, Gillian Keegan and Penny Mordaunt, who were wiped out last night. Suella Braverman, who retained her seat and became an immediate top leadership contender, was one of the only ones talking any sense.
Now finally, I want to briefly address the result in the rest of the country. And there is only one thing that I can say. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that my party didn't listen to you. The Conservative Party has let you down. You, the great British people, voted for us over 14 years, and we did not keep our promises.
Yet the Tory wets, even now, still argue the party needs to move further to the left. They are delusional. If they succeed in that, let me tell you, the world's most successful party in history will be over. We are fed up of being ignored, fed up of the elites telling us what to do and what to think while impoverishing us with virtue signalling policies like Nut Zero. Fed up with being told we are racist or Islamophobic for trying to control our borders and keep hold of the British values we treasure. Fed up of being told a man is a woman as we are meant to blindly agree to the mutilation of our children. And when it comes to the mainstream media, fed up of its completely biased and out-of-touch worldview of the world we inhabit. And nothing illustrated that more than the pathetic display last night, as outlined brilliantly by Farage.
But to watch the TV coverage, it's almost comical. There's not a single representative on there from Reform UK. Mainstream media are in denial just as much as our political parties. This is going to be 6 million votes plus. This, folks, is huge.
And let me tell you, I have the receipts. Listen to the main Sly News presenter, Kay Burley, erupt, and I hate to say this, what sounded like sexual ecstasy as the exit poll came in.
Oh. Whoa. Oh my God. Yeah.
Seriously? What was going on, Kay? Watch the ghastly and deranged Carol Vorderman literally celebrate with guests on Channel 4's completely biased coverage.
Who could ever have thought that a government would be as utterly banal and ridiculous as this one? So let's get the party started because they have gone.
I'll drink to that.
Yay!
There we go.
Hey, cheers.
Unbelievable. And there were tears on the British Bashing Corporation.
Talked to Aisha Hazarika, now Labour peer, one time aide to Ed Miliband. When Keir Starmer was speaking, when the result came in, you were, I hope you don't mind me saying, you had tears in your eyes and you look still now.
I am really quite emotional, to be honest, because I think for so many of us who have just had this really long, difficult time in opposition, long-term Labour Party supporters, what Keir Starmer has done tonight is nothing short of performing a miracle.
But there is reason to hope. There is no enthusiasm for the trio of Starmer, Rayner and Reeves. The Labour Party is about to ruin our country. And with Reform UK in Parliament under Farage and a real Conservative like Suella, Priti Patel or Robert Jenrick set to wrest control of the failing Conservatives, there is now a genuine chance to reinvent the British right. And we're going to reinvent the media too, with you right here on Outspoken, because we've got to save Britain. The future of the country we love is at stake. So let's get straight to one of the main men behind that revolution. Richard Tice is the new Reform UK MP for Boston and Skegness. Until just a few weeks ago, and Nigel's return, he was the leader of the party. And of course, he was behind its highly popular Contract with the People. Richard Tice, I've never been so happy to be so wrong in all of my life. Against all the odds, you did it, mate.
Dan, a very good afternoon, and thank you. Yes, I remember when you attacked me for when Reform UK hit 5%, and you said we were going to split the vote, and I said, Dan, you're wrong, and here we are. We've achieved something remarkable, a vote share, give or take, treble that. We're incredibly proud. I'm very honoured to be the Member of Parliament for Boston and Skegness, and it's a serious moment to have 4, potentially 5 MPs. I can give you breaking news, Dan.
Oh, good. What's happening?
The third recount in Basildon is literally finishing as we speak. The Labour Party are going nuts. All sorts of things. It's incredibly close, but our man is still just ahead, which is very exciting. So we could well have a 5th MP, and that is, I mean, given how hard it is with first past the post, it's truly remarkable. So,
well, this is the beginning of a revolution, isn't it? Because what is so despicable is if you look at the vote share, you have far fewer MPs than the Liberal Democrats, but many, many more votes by hundreds of thousands. So actually, the system has to change now, and I do think this can happen.
I think so. And we've got, I think, the Conservative Party have got about just over 50% more votes than us. But they seem to have 30 times more MPs than us. And the Labour Party have just over twice as many votes as we've got. And they've got 100 times the number of our MPs. This is a broken democratic system that's totally unrepresentative. And people know injustice and democratic unfairness when they see it. And that's going to be the big debate going forward. But look, we've got the bridgehead that we wanted, and we're incredibly proud of that. And we may be a handful in number, but I tell you what, we're going to be very, very noisy and effective in terms of what we achieve. I suspect we'll be more noisy and more effective than the 70-odd Lib Dem MPs, that is for sure. It's exciting times. There's a lot to do, but we're absolutely ready to get stuck in. And let me tell you, the people's revolt is just beginning.
Well, indeed it is. And that's why I think this show is going to be incredibly important too, because what we saw last night, Richard, was the most crooked and biased and out of touch coverage from the mainstream media that has ever existed in the UK, because they don't just dislike you guys. They despise you. And they're terrified of you. And they spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to destroy you. So I'll give you an example, Richard. Last night, the Green Party leader, who's now an MP, co-leader, Carla Denyer, she was interviewed on both Woke ITV and the British Bashing Corporation. It was a lovin'. They were virtually giving her a virtual hug down the camera. Not one question about the Islamic extremists who now represent the Green Party. Yet any time Reform UK is interviewed, you have been hammered. The bias against Reform is out of control.
As I understand, the Green Party had to withdraw post-nomination some 10 candidates, way more than those that we did. And look,
no coverage of it, Richard.
No coverage of it whatsoever. I only learned about it yesterday because of that lack of coverage. Look, all parties abhor racism. There's no place for it anywhere in our society or politics. But the level of scrutiny that we've been put under is totally and utterly outrageous. But let me tell you, on the doorstep, speaking to thousands of people that I love in campaigning, people are raising completely different issues. They're raising the issue of the cost of living, why work doesn't pay, the state of our health system in this country, how mass immigration is making everyone poorer and reducing the quality of life, and how our streets and town centres are not safe. Those are the issues that concern ordinary folk, and that's what I spent the whole of this election campaign talking to people about.
And just a final word, Richard, did Channel 4 set you up? Because the off-communists say they did nothing wrong.
Of course they did. What they did it was through a production company which gave them cover, it gave them deniability. But be under no illusion, this was a total and utter stitch up. They did it to me back in December 19. It probably cost me the seat back then. But this time it was spotted. This was unbelievable. This was an actor who specialises in rough voices and specialises in secret filming. And we now have a written statement, Dan, from someone who was in the car with the filmer and this actor. And the two of those people were in deep discussion at the beginning of the rendezvous of the volunteers. So they were there together working out how they were going to do it. This thing was the greatest stitch-up in modern electoral times, a total electoral interference. In my view, Channel 4 broke electoral law.
If you enjoyed that video, don't forget to subscribe to Dan Wootton Outspoken, where you'll get much more of it. See you soon.